around saying we need change. And like I said, there's this interesting point we find ourselves where people are starting to almost say, well, there's certain things that have been done. Perhaps we should now move to understanding that this is the best that can be done, or this is, this is a solution. Whereas I think a lot of us know it's not. It's in the guise of, but really, it's a massive tone-deaf approach to what people are asking. How can we sustain momentum? How can we sustain the activism to ensure that at the end of the day, the voices are heard, the people are heard? How can we continue to sustain it?
Thank you, Janet. One of the ways I see we can sustain the oomph and the zeal of this movement is in remembering how far we've come. And I say this because, just to bounce off what my sister, Comrade Sefu, has said, if we tire, we despise the blood of Rex. If we tire, we despise the blood of Shujaa Kennedy, a 12-year-old boy who was shot. If we tire, we are sanctioning that children should be tear-gassed in schools. If we tire and if we lose our momentum, we are enabling a corrupt regime. It is ensuring that all of you who are in queer in pursuit of a better future will never get into a workforce. And if you do, you need to have the surname of a person currently sitting in government. I think the way we can sustain, and personally what drives me to be part of this movement, is the fact that there are people who once left home and will never go back. There are people who left home on the 25th and on the day we occupied Parliament, who are going to exercise their democratic right to assembly and will never walk again. I think about these people and ask myself, what is so special about me that I should be tired? What makes me so special that I get the right to be tired? Does the mother of Rex, who has shared one of the most heartbreaking stories I've had, does she get the luxury of being tired? Her son was out to ask for better governance, to ask for a better future. For me, he lay his life down so that I might be able to make it for the Citizens' Assembly. I think it is only wise that I contribute that way. If I get tired, Evans Kiraito, who was shot by the police, because these are not victims of accidental happenings. They were not struck by acts of God. These are victims of police excesses and police brutality. We are living in a country that has a police force that is living in the guise of a police service. If I get tired, does the couple that raised Evans, that is now being detained at Central Police Station, have the luxury to be tired? And I think, while it is exhausting, while we live in a world where you're supposed to be a student and this is not how we envisioned to spend our 20s, certainly not for me, in the gift of community, in knowing that I can look to the side and see my sister fighting, I can look to my side and see my brother fighting, I can look to you and see you reporting the facts as they are without being gagged. Those are some of the things we can do. There is most definitely going to be protest fatigue, as is the norm of any process that we undergo as human beings. But for the sake of the sanctity of their lives, of the comrades we lost, for the sake of the families they left behind, for the sake of the dreams and the brains that were splattered on Parliament Road, we cannot afford to get tired. It is okay to take some rest, but for the sake of the comrades who've gone before us, let us not tire.
Let us not tire. And I think just both what you and Sefu have alluded to is those before us didn't. So why should we? You have, though, very accurately talked about protest fatigue. And I think there's going to need to be conversations that reinvigorate people so that they don't feel like, oh, it's done. Right. Or maybe this is the change we need. Yeah. Because we're starting to see that. And unfortunately, it gets us back to why we started in the first place. Right. Elizabeth, again, from the perspective of legal, the escalation of brutality is something unlike many have seen before. Even just yesterday, people peacefully mourning with the parents and relatives of those who died, and then on video, just like grabbed, arrested. Where does the law come in? I know it's a complex question, and this is a complex matter. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. But what rights are there to use that kind of excess force? And because people want to continue to agitate for change, what happens now? Because it's, in a sense, it's erasure, it's silencing. So from a legal perspective, what is this that we're seeing playing out? And how can we allow people to know that they should be safe when they go to protest peacefully?
In my view, what was happening, like what happened yesterday, is just a classic case of a government just battering its population into submission. That's just what it is. So you batter to a point that you cannot resist anymore. That's just it. So it is not legal, but it is just a tactic that they're using to beat us to submission. Now, what my view is, any government that is in place should have a humane face. Now, this has got nothing to do with legal or being it a legal perspective, but it has to be a humane face. Now, if someone, I mean, common sense dictates that if I'm barring, the much you can do is give me at least some time to just finish the ceremony, then you can come and barge in. That is just common human decency. But you see now what the government is doing, it is now engaging in psychological warfare. It is actually wrong. So what we are saying is, why can't the relevant authorities just follow the right procedure? It's not like someone is going to run away if they're already attending a funeral. Let them finish. Just give them the decency of mourning, and then you can continue. But we are also seeing a situation where they're even now going to estates now. They're taking those attacks to people in their own homes, you see. So we're slowly getting to a point where now the population is getting so battered, they don't know where it is safe anymore. You're not safe in the town, you're not safe in your own home, so where do you go now, you see? So it's just instilling that fear. But people need to know that nothing comes easy, and this government, actually what it is doing is actually very wrong. And in terms of protesters, they should actually, if the police were doing their work of actually giving protection to the protesters, just going along and ensuring that the protests are taking place as per the law, then all these things we are seeing are really unnecessary. I don't see why the government has to go into estates. If people are running away, why would they be running away if the proper procedure of a protest is actually being followed? So I think we need a humane face to the engagement that is there between the police, the relevant government authorities, and its own population. That's what I think.
Yeah, thank you for setting that tone and saying it's clearly, completely, it's unlawful, because it's important that that's highlighted. Irene, what happens now? Because the public trust is lost. It's broken. People are now looking at so many enemies arising, right? You know,